Hello and welcome to another edition of Game Warp. Today we are obviously looking at our featured game for December, which this time around is Batman Arkham Origins, the third game in the Arkham series, and often seen as being the least popular. And we decided, obviously being Christmas coming up, then we wanted to do a Christmas game. So what better time to really visit the Arkham Origins than obviously with Christmas, because this is a game set on Christmas Eve. But before we obviously get into our featured game for this month, of course gives me great pleasure to welcome, as always, my co-host Miss Kim Lowe.
Hello. I'm really excited. This is our first AAA game. Well, kind of our first AAA. Beyond Good and Evil was a AAA as well. But then it was like so long ago that I guess I don't know if it really counts.
Yeah, I think this is our first AAA game we've both been enthusiastic about at the end of it. So,
yeah.
Obviously this game is a prequel to the previous games, Arkham Asylum and Arkham City. Now, as we said, this game is set several years before Batman really became the Batman. So at this point, the police are still wary of him. He's just this mass costume vigilante. They don't know if they can trust him or not. And at the same time, he's sort of established as being Batman, but at the same time, a lot of the major villains are yet to be introduced. So when we obviously open, we start with a breakout at Blackgate Penitentiary, and from there, we find out Black Mask has sent 8 assassins to kill Batman, and putting a big bounty on Christmas Eve for whoever can take him out. So we've obviously got that hanging over its head, and at the same time, Batman is still trying to track down Black Mask. But as we obviously get further into the story, we find out that perhaps not everything is as it seems. This game, as we mentioned already, is widely regarded as being the worst of the 3 games, mainly because it switched over developers during its production. So this one was greeted with a little more sort of caution. At the same time, it received some criticism for the changes that it made, even though it kept the overall gameplay very similar to the previous 2 games. Now, obviously with this game, we're set in the world of Arkham City. Perhaps this isn't the same sort of a huge expansive world that we would see in Arkham Knight, but obviously this is run on the 360 or the PlayStation 3. So it's a little more limited, but it's still an immersive world, and very much the same as Arkham City. We have this immersive world to go in without the same time feeling that we have been there already. But before we obviously get too deep into this, I mean, opening thoughts on this one, Kim, because obviously, as you said already, you're not normally an open world gamer. You prefer, I'm right in saying, like the mobile games and sort of puzzle games and things.
Well, I'm more of a platformer. I like platformers a lot. I like puzzle games a lot. I like mobiles a lot. Like, to me, I think when we first did our first, maybe somewhere in the earlier episodes that we did, I had talked about open world games and the comparison of GTA, how I was not interested in it. Is really the fact that there's so much to do, and there's like, sometimes, I guess there's always like a linear storyline, but where, like you have to complete certain objectives and whatnot. But at the same time, like, it's never a compelling enough story for me to be involved in. Obviously, I know that you're different because you love the GTA series incredibly. I mean, my husband would be right behind you on that one. But I think that what makes Batman very interesting as an open world, and just the fact that we know Gotham City, we've seen so many Batman movies at this point that you kind of understand a gist of like where everything is coming from. And the fact that this is an origins, it also is not only Batman's origins, but what's really good about it is that you're going into a story where, like it's kind of watching The Dark Knight, and you have a bit of Joker, and then you kind of have an idea of where Harley Quinn comes in, and and these people are normal at this point, like they're, well, maybe not the Joker, he was not normal,
No.
but I mean, like like the rare thing we've never seen, or at least because I'm not a comic book reader, I don't know how Harley Quinn became Harley Quinn. So we kind of get a glimpse of that, and that was one of those really great moments and really beautiful twists that I really, really enjoyed in the story where it came up and I was like, hey, that's her. What? Mind blown. And, it's also the fact that I kind of enjoyed not only the main story, but that the side quests were really fun to do. Because, well, while it was kind of stressful in some points, it also gave you a good flexibility of like, oh, you need to go to this target, and you could change your waypoints, and you could change what you need to do to upgrade. And nothing is kind of like, everything is kind of waiting for you to happen. It's not like, oh, this is gonna. So it's a really nice introduction to the entire world of what's going on. And
Yeah.
I think that that's what makes it very, immersive to play.
I think in many ways I'm kind of envious of the position you're coming into this game, Kim, because obviously you're coming in with Origins, so the natural progression from leaving here would lead you straight into Arkham Asylum, and then Arkham City, and you would play the events in the order which they happen. And in many ways, you'd be playing, obviously, what many consider to be like the worst game, and the games would obviously build up to being what's considered the best game, which is Arkham City. So, in many ways, it's kind of nice that you come into this one, and then you obviously have the progression to where these games build. And you mentioned already that this is an origin story, and I like the fact that although it's an origin story, it's not at the very beginning. We're not seeing Bruce Wayne putting his tech together and building the Batcave and that. No, he's already established as Batman. He's been out on his vigilante patrols for a while now, so he's got this reputation already within Gotham City when we meet him. But at the same time, he's not this legendary vigilante. He's not this. He hasn't got these same sort of connections with the villains he encounters that he would obviously have with the later installments and sort of further down the line as most of the stories are currently set. So it's great to obviously have that first encounter with Joker, because at this point in the story, Batman and Joker have never met each other. And in a way, it's also great the fact that this is a game where the main villain, at least at the start, is Black Mask, who, from my own sort of personal knowledge, I would think has never really been featured as a Batman villain within the games. Certainly he's featured prominently within the comic books and perhaps in the animated series, but he's never had a video game presence. So it was really quite exciting to see Black Mask make an appearance here. At the same time, we see some of the villains that we've seen in previous games, such as Killer Croc comes back. Deadshot is another one, and Bane makes it free for free here with his appearance here. But at the same time, we've introduced some new villains. We've got people like Electrocutioner, Deathstroke. We got the Lady Shiva, who again is another key character within the Batman arc. And most excitingly, we see Firefly, who is probably most noteworthy for his appearance within the Nightfall comic. And there he was sort of like just a minor villain, but here we get a wonderful set piece on Gotham Bridge, which is one of the real standout parts of the game. So it's really great that even if we're dealing with some of the smaller villains, they're not being treated as small minor villains. They actually get a decent amount of establishment in the game and really properly set up. And at the same time, being an open world game, while you obviously encounter these assassins that have been dispatched to take out Batman, we also have side quests where we can encounter people such as Mad Hatter and Anarchy. The Riddler makes a return doing those stupid puzzles again. So you got the tokens you can go around the city and collect for a very, very unsatisfying payoff. But yeah, as you say, it's a really great story, and just seeing how characters are introduced, and especially knowing where they're going to go, it's kind of exciting in that respect. But in terms of gameplay, I mean, how did you find the gameplay to this? I mean, I've personally found it a very responsive sort of combat and movement system that you have that really, in many ways, makes you feel that you're playing this character rather than the other previous incarnations, like from earlier consoles where it was sort of like a 2D scroll and you basically have a basic punch and kick button and can perhaps throw like a batarang or something. And there was never that attachment that these Arkham games obviously give you.
The thing is that is a good point that I do need to talk about in the sense of gameplay, because while this is also my first open world experience. It's also the first big game that I've played ever since I've upgraded my computer and my graphics card so that now I can play heavy hitter games like this. And I have to say that one of my biggest issues with the newer games and why I don't play it so much is mostly due to my incapability to manage camera angles and play the game at the same time. So right now I'm playing this on PC. And like as I'm playing this, I'm realizing that I think that when it comes to the regards of camera angles, I kind of like it on PC. I find it easier to maneuver just because it's more like you have your freedom to do a lot of things. Obviously, that makes the whole like keyboard section very cluttered because then now you have to remember all of these weapons that you have and they're number coded. So you have to remember, like, say, for example, number 1 is Batarang, and then you have to remember the disruptor is like, oh, number 9, and then you have whatever glue grenade is a number 5, and you know, when you do quick fire, there's also another key that you need to press, and all these different things. And then sometimes, like, when you're on your WASD keys, you also have to kind of hit the detective vision really fast, or sometimes you have to roll really fast, and they're a little harder than if you had, like, say, the PS controller. So that's a constant debate I had. I still think the gameplay mechanics are very, very fluid. Obviously, this is what you'd expect because it is a AAA game. There's a big, big budget behind this game. But I do think that the gameplay is not only just like I really like the smoothness of the fighting. I think that like the fighting part is really, really good because it never feels impossible to beat anyone.
Yeah.
It only feels like you timed something not well enough. If you die, it's really your own fault. Like it's only your like lack of judgment or you misjudged the situation and you didn't counter fast enough or you didn't hit the guy with a gun or you didn't strategize and hit the snipers down first or whatever, whatever the situation, or you weren't stealth enough. Whatever the situation was, it's your planning that messed up what happened. It was never the fact that it was like a mishap of the game. But on top of the gameplay mechanics, other than fighting, I think the one I liked the most was probably the case investigation analysis portions. I really like those because it really made you feel that Batman was actually he's a really smart guy, Batman wasn't all just fighting villains, sure, he does it to defend the city, but he also has a side where Batman is very investigative. He wants to look into the situation and hunt down the suspect. And, he's not there to kill anybody. He's there to just help the law go, kind of just help with the police, the GCPD, catch whatever villains and whatever suspects and whatever they miss because they might not have the high tech that he has and whatever that he can find,
Yeah. I mean,
so those portions are really good.
Yeah. I mean, you obviously mentioned that. I mean, Batman obviously is the renowned master detective. So it's great to obviously see that action rather than just saying, oh, it's Batman, he's going to just go around and punch things. Because obviously he has all the bat tech. We got and he customizes the tech constantly as you go through the game. So in this one you get the electro gloves. You can also get things such as like sticky bombs and things so you constantly get new adjustments to your equipment. You get the backlog as well, which is incredibly handy, and it's great that the game obviously gives you all these different tools, and then it's up to you to figure out the best way to utilize them. And I think more so in this game than in the previous ones, especially in the terms of the fighting, because in the fighting sections particularly, it really did feel like you were being mobbed at times a lot more than you previously have in other games. Now, the fighting is still as fluid as we've seen in the previous two games, so it's a very easy counter system, and when you do counter, you have these wonderful sort of set pieces in the game. So again, we have, if someone hits you with a pole, you can take the pole and you can hit them back with it briefly, or he does a kick, or there's all these counters that keep the combat flowing. So it's not just a case of, oh, I'm just blocking you. It's just you're constantly moving, and the way that you can still flow from one opponent to the next just makes combat's such a joy, and it's really since the Prince of Persia: like Sands of Time and Warrior Within that we've had such a great combat system, especially for this sort of game. Normally, it's a case of you have to move the character to the next opponent. In this game, we obviously, as with the previous games, you're constantly able to flow from one opponent to the next, making combat such a joy to go into. And I think there's few greater joys in life than jumping into the middle of combat, because you can swoop down on opponents, you can do a swooping kick. In the stealth sections, you can hang off the gargoyles again and drop down on villains. So all those tricks that we see in the previous game are still there and present, and it's nice to see that they've not tried to monkey around too much with the combat system. That being said, where the changes have been made are in terms of the map, which is horrible. This is a map which will drive you insane with the amount of traveling that you will have to do. And yes, there are fast points, but they're such a pain to use because you have to sit for the same animation. And chances are you would just want to just go across by bat rope or ground rope.
The thing is that I think the map is really big, and especially when you look at just the map itself that we have to look at, you can actually see like the bridges two pretty big areas of Gotham City, and you can actually see like all the stuff that needs to be done. And I think that in that respect, I guess it's because I'm so new to the open world that I expect it to be so big. And I kind of I didn't find it so much as it was tedious as the fact that it's just the fact that like now we have an extra obstacle because your Batwing is not right away able to use fast points and fast travel points.
Yeah.
But rather now we have a side quest of Enigma, who actually starts off as a pretty main quest because we're driven to have to meet Enigma kind of and his puzzles type of thing. Figuring out how to unlock the towers, the communication towers that he's kind of like jammed up. And as you go, you have to kind of discover what Enigma is up to at the same time and unlock all the towers in each district and then hit all the relay networks and all that stuff. And that's that's kind of like the process of having to do all this. But I don't really think the map is as much of a big world as it's just a lot of stuff that you need to do. And and it's the fact that Gotham City is just strewn with enemies. Like there's always bad guys on every other rooftop and every other landing, and there's always crimes in progress. And it just shows how like Gotham City is such a such a dirty place. There's more thugs than humans,
Yeah.
than like actual people, that are like good people.
Yeah.
And I guess it's because it's set at night that you see all this dirty work going on, and whether you're tracking down Penguin's thugs or you're off taking care of Black Mask's issues, or whether you're just trying to hit up like whoever's trying to bomb whatever place because it's Batman and someone's gonna definitely get bombed. All these different things is I don't think it's a bad map, but I do want to go back to a point is that of your point about stealth. Because I think the gameplay mechanics for stealth is exceptional here, especially since we're coming off playing Beyond Good and Evil, and that was just like a horrific stealth experience. That here is like while I'm not like skilled enough and my buttons were messing with me a few times, so I couldn't do like really great stealth sequences.
Yeah.
But I thought that the stealth sections were really really amazing in the sense that like you said, you can drop down or you can hang and you can actually strategize. And I guess it kind of makes the thugs feel a little stupid, but that's also probably because I was new to this and I decided to set myself at difficulty of easy just so that I wouldn't be since I am the one doing the gameplay, I don't want to be the gameplay you're seeing in the background is just constant death scenes and I wouldn't be able to do much and the editing would just be like a mega nightmare.
Yeah. I mean, perhaps it can be argued the stealth sections aren't as fun as the ones we see in previous games, but at the same time, they're not changing anything too major here. We're not seeing any sort of swooping changes being made, obviously, by Warner Brothers Games Montreal, who obviously took over from Rocksteady for the game here. So it's great the fact that they didn't. The changes that they're making, they're not making them to the things which work, such as stealth and combat, which is obviously going to be one of my main fears here. And there's still that joy in where you take out one or two thugs and you see their friends like get panicked and start like making all these rash moves or taking out the gargoyles because they're trying to as they try and track you down. And there's equally a fun sense in trying to find the ways that you can mess with these people. So you take like one down from like the gargoyle ledge, for example, and you take another from under the grates, and you have all this equipment, and part of your mind you want to do it the way that's going to cause you the less aggro, and at the same time you kind of want to use all the tech because you get into this mindset of I am Batman, perhaps without the ass voice, but that's up to you how you choose to play the game. And the fact that the game is staying so true to these characters, I mean, when we're looking at the plot in here, this is a plot that's taking in things such as like Batman Year One, Legend of the Dark Knight, The Long Halloween, The Man Who Laughs, Turning Points. So it's got all these like key comics, and then as we said already, this is a Year Two story, which makes it kind of jarring to go into this game, especially having played the first two and have the police. You're never sure why they're attacking you, why they're not responding to you the same way that they have done in the previous games, and it took a little bit of time to get into mindset. It's like, oh, wait a minute, with this early in the story, that Batman still isn't established with the Gotham police, right? He's just some freak in a costume who's going around cleaning up the city. And he's just, we don't know if he's like one of these villains or what. So it's kind of interesting in that respect. And the fact we're getting to see Blackgate is another location I've really wanted to see in a game. So the fact we both start and end at Blackgate Penitentiary is just really exciting. And I have to ask Kim, obviously, when it came to like the voice cast and that, because obviously with this game there was some sweeping changes in the voice. So Troy Baker took over for Mark Hamill as the role of the Joker and does an absolutely fantastic voice work here. We also see Kevin Conroy having his voice acting replaced, and this was really weird because they'd actually replaced him with Roger Craig Smith because they felt they wanted a younger voice. And I have to wonder, did your voice actually change as you get older? Because I think surely when you hit a certain age it stops changing, but I've never understood why they feel this constant need to cast younger actors to play characters at younger periods, especially if they're not like teenagers or something like that. For yourself, I mean, what did you make of the voice cast? I mean,
I thought the voices were really good. I mean, it seems to be like I thought it was very diverse. It was very fun. I think most of it had to do with dialogue. I don't really have a big thing with like voices as long as it's not like over exaggerated. I just never understand why Batman always has to be this like really like low and weird voice, like they had to pick up after like Christian Bale with his voice alternated in Dark Knight or something, I never understood why they had to do that. It was at least like Bane didn't sound like illegible, at least. I mean, it was just, that was my criticism of Dark Knight Rises.
Well, because Bruce Wayne's a playboy billionaire. He's like a well-known face. So if he's going around using his normal voice, then people are going to go, "Oh, wait a minute, you're Bruce Wayne in a playsuit." That's no good. So he has to use the deeper voice because first of all, it's intimidation, which is obviously one of the key things with Batman. He's about intimidating and causing fear. Which obviously goes back to like the League of Shadows training, and I'm going to go off on a whole nerdy rant if we go too much into this, so I'm going to stop right there.
Okay, yes. So, yeah, but I mean, like, yeah, the voices are good. I think that, like, I think some of the fun parts were the fact that there were so many like different voices and all this different like the characters, and because I guess I don't really know a lot of the characters, like Penguin and his assistants, like the two ladies there, Candy and Tracy. Tracy has this like, the entrance thing is like she has this like super huge accent of some sort. And I don't remember what it is. It's Australian or England or English or something. I don't know. But like something like that. And it was, it was very entertaining to see all these voices and that, oh, Penguin actually is not like he has an accent as well. And there's like everybody has their own kind of style to it. And that's really interesting because you're easy to distinguish who is who. Everybody has this attitude in their voice. Even Enigma, which we only really just see a shadow of, to kind of show kind of like a cocky, self-confident guy who thinks he's really smart, but then he's getting like one up by Batman all the time.
Yeah.
Who's like kind of like just destroying his plans constantly.
Oh yeah, because obviously Enigma will go on later in the Batman timeline to become the Riddler, but as he's introduced in Arkham Origins, he's just a hacker in this interpretation of the game. And he just obviously goes by the moniker of Enigma. So he's just basically being a pain in the ass. And if you collect all the various tokens and blackmail files, you can break into his little lair. Mm-hmm. And that's it. They build it up like it's going to be this big thing. It's going to be this big secret mission, like if you're doing like the Anarchy side quest or the Mad Hatter side quest. And yeah.
The funniest part of I want to talk about side quests in a little bit, but since you're talking about Anarchy, it was really funny because one of the suspects for one of the cases you have to solve is Anarchy that you have to chase down. And I chased down Anarchy, and then I found it stupid because I hadn't went to defuse his bomb yet. So I was like, well, why are the bombs his thugs are still going at the bombs when, I already caught the main guy, So it was a little weird because I guess that's one of the problems of open world games because it's not linear, so you're not forced to do something in a certain way where only if this event happens that this should still continue on, obviously. But then it's good because that also means it doesn't limit your quests. Like you can always go back and it's always available.
Yeah.
But I think the one quest I do want to talk about that really was impressive was the Mad Hatter quest. Like you literally as Batman drop into Alice in Wonderland and it's in like a 2.5D platformer style. So it totally switches what you're doing around. And then it kind of like goes from 2.5D and then it goes back to like 3D where you can actually move your cameras around. For some bits, like they were kind of a pain in the ass, just like the remote control Batarang was. Yeah. But I mean like this section was very original as the fact that you didn't expect to kind of fall into Wonderland and you're chasing Alice. And then you come back out and kind of like, oh, you have to save Alice now. And you just wonder where all this fits into the whole story.
Yeah. I think it's definitely a really great sequence. And it comes out of nowhere. You don't expect, especially for a side quest, to have this moment. And in many ways, Mad Hatter fills the role left void by the absence of Scarecrow in this volume. There's also, during the Firefly boss fight, a segment where it actually again switches to a 2D format, 2.5 format, and it's really interesting the fact that they're willing to switch it up so it's not like with the previous games where the boss fights were just basically you face a room full of guys and you basically battle all those guys and then you somehow defeat the boss. And it was always one of the most nagging issues with the game. Like you do the Harley Quinn boss fight, but it's just basically you fight Harley Quinn's goons while she electrifies the floor. And there'd be like one or two villains which would have their own boss fights, such as like Bane or Poison Ivy. And it's nice to see them actually trying to do proper boss fights with these characters. And with Firefly being a real sort of stand-up moment there. And as you said already, the whole Mad Hatter sequence is a lot of fun as well. So while this game has its issues, there's still a lot to enjoy here. And I think it's so unfair, the fact that people dismiss this game because it doesn't somehow live up to the reputation of the previous two games, which set the benchmark so high. It was always going to be difficult for them to sort of live up to and sort of beat that sort of level, especially on the 360. I mean, obviously with the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4 with Arkham Knight, you have more technology there. You got more freedom to do something a bit different. So, I personally was happy with this end to the trilogy. I mean,
You
you
know,
can.
the thing is that you have comparison. Like for me, I'm just fresh eyes going in, right?
Mm,
I might have seen like three sequences of like Arkham Asylum when my husband was playing it, you
yeah,
know? But I've never like, now I kind of feel like I should go play it because now I'm kind of at, from what the general public says, it's the bottom of the barrel and I really, really liked it. So that means the rest of the trilogy should be fantastic.
it's
And
like.
and I really look forward to it. And just just before anything, I just want to like cut into super random thing is because there's no other place I could do this, but ask there's no good way of asking this. But
Okay.
don't you think that dying is so awesome in Batman Arkham Origins? You don't understand why I said that, right?
I know why I was feeling I know why you said, because obviously when you die in these games, you get the little cut sequence where you're taunted by whichever villain you happen to be going after, be it Penguin or Deathstroke or
Yeah.
the Joker. They did the little taunt sequence that was obviously carried over from the previous game. So I'm guessing, Kim, that even if you are dying a lot, that you still getting something out of it.
Yeah, but I mean, like, obviously there were some I didn't die, like Copperhead or something. I didn't die for that sequence, so I didn't even get like that sequence of what happened. But I mean, like, there are obviously I don't deliberately die. I don't make a point to die to see this, but it made it very interesting because especially like with, um, I do want to ask you what is your favorite boss, although I think that's Firefly, right?
um, I'm torn actually because I mean, obviously, Firefly is a lot of fun. Killer Croc at the beginning, I really enjoy as well. Just, I think it's more the dialogue with Killer Croc because there's a scene in the opening where he basically knocks him onto a fence and it's hanging off a cliff and he's straddling his chest and he's like, "You want teeth? I want answers." And I was like, "That's so good." And there's obviously boss fights later on that are clever. I mean, there's scenes such as when we go for the Joker's fun world, where he basically converts the side of a hotel into his own twisted theme park, and just battling your way through those sections I found to be a lot of fun. But the one I didn't enjoy was Deathstroke, who is just a pain in the ass in this game. It's like and he comes so early in the game as well. To have a boss that tough, there's a real sense of satisfaction when you finally beat him. So
I remember messaging you, and I was like, oh my god, I feel so defeated. I've been trying to beat Deathstroke for like 40 minutes now, and I just can't. I'm getting better, but I'm just not there. And every
yeah,
time I say that, I beat him like the next time that I try it. So that's really good. Like, it was so satisfying to see the ending. And I never knew Deathstroke was an old dude. So it was kind of like an interesting white-haired dude. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that's a turn of events I didn't
yeah.
expect. But yeah, I mean, as for bosses, I think that a lot of it was really fun. But I think that the sidetrack when they do introduce the Joker and where all this goes, where we even have a little segment where we play as a Joker, is actually pretty cool. Like, there's a lot of really cool moments in this, and I do want to ask you, what is your favorite moment in this game? Like, without spoilers, but kind of like dabbing into places, I guess. I know it's hard, but
Oh, I think I mentioned it already. The opening boss fight with Killer Croc. I think
oh,
that
that's your favorite moment.
I think
Okay.
yeah, I think it's just as we say, it's just that pure badassness because this is obviously a Bruce Wayne who's still dealing with his anger issues. The fact he feels nothing about threatening to bash people's teeth in. Perhaps he's not like the same Dark Knight that we've obviously seen in like the most recent Batman movies, where he's off branding villains and whatnot. But this is a really interesting, sort of like a more hot-headed Batman. And just obviously seeing that opening confrontation, the fact that it's hanging over a cliff is just so unbelievably cool. There's just something very over dramatic and about it, but I just yeah, it just really survived for me. But what's your favorite moment, Kim?
Oh, my favorite moment I already mentioned early on was the whole Harley Quinn part. Like I really love that part. Like that whole like psychiatrist thing. And then it's like, oh, she's they kind of get into it, but they don't say her name until the end of the whole sequence.
Yeah.
So you kind of have that moment where you don't really know who she is. Between this and kind of like I really like the Barbara Gordon part where we had Commissioner Gordon's daughter come in for just that little section. Like you didn't really expect what's going on. Like those are really nice scenes. I think they're calmer, but they're also really they're very like kind of in depth of like has some depth to it as to giving the story some depth and a little bit more twists to what's going on.
So, I mean, what rating would you give this one here, Kim? Obviously, this is your first introduction to the Arkham games. What would you rate Arkham Origins?
I would give 4 out of 5. I had so much fun. Like I was like, I think the winning point in this is that I usually when I die a lot and I feel really, really lost or I get really turned around in any game, I feel frustrated and angry. But for Batman Arkham Origins, I didn't feel that. I was willing to accept the open world. I was willing to, be better. I was willing to try and try and try until I could beat it. And there was just that constant motivation to be better because you never felt like really, really like just defeated because the game wasn't good enough. It was just because I wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
So there was also that point that, like I'm a very fidgety person. I move around a lot. And this game I was able to like sit down one day and 4 hours went by. I was like, oh, I'm gonna play 1 hour. And then when I got back out, I realized it was 4 hours and outside was like I went from afternoon to like light had already like the sun had already fallen, like it had already set. And I think that that's a really amazing feeling is that you constantly want to go back in to learn more about the story. And if you don't want to learn more about the story as like the main storyline, you can always have something else to do. And all of it is very fluid. It's always like it's pretty well thought out and it's just a very cinematic experience as well. So it's kind of like even if people were watching just the gameplay, which I have been doing and I have been posting on YouTube, um, it feels like you're watching a story unfold, and that's really nice.
Yeah. I mean,
So
yeah.
yeah. So what would be your score?
I think like myself, I really enjoyed this game. I feel it's very unfairly criticized and compared to the previous two. I really like yourself. I believe it's a solid 4 out of 5 for this game. The only issues I have with the game would be when it comes to actually moving around the map and the fact that you're constantly having to go back and forth over Gotham Bridge, and it gets to the point where you just you kind of wish that things weren't in the locations they were. But that being said, the city is still interesting to look at, and the fact that you've got this Christmassy feel throughout the city. So to see things such as like Christmas lights in dark alleys, it's just like these nice little touches that make it feel that you're not just playing the same game again that you played with the previous, like with like Arkham City. The choice of villains, it also makes it a very interesting game. The fact that for one that it includes Black Mask, who is again he's a real nice contrast because he's not this fantastical villain that obviously Batman becomes more renowned for facing. So people like Riddler, the Penguin, Catwoman, and these sort of characters, and the fact that with the villains that you have, they're not treated as like second-rate villains and stuff. They're introduced properly. So if you're not familiar with the characters, then you can look at bios for them. Within the actual game as well, they're actually really interestingly introduced, and all the fight scenes and the action sequences and the just general exploration is just a lot of fun to do. It's just a shame that some of those city segments that they're not so well thought out as you would like, and certainly the Riddler trophies amount to pretty much squat, which is also disappointing for certainly the amount of time you put into finding them. But no, this is a very unfairly criticized game, and it's definitely worthy of a solid 4 out of 5 for me.
Great. I mean, it seems like we're ending the year well because we both between me and you, we've had a lot of games that we haven't agreed on completely, and for the last review of 2016 as a featured game, that's to wrap up our season. it's really nice to see that, we both found something that was really interesting. And I mean, it's, it's only going to go up, right, for next year.
Well, this is the thing when we go into obviously season 2 of the show in the new year. I mean, where it'd be interesting to obviously see how the games we've chosen for the second season compare to this season. Obviously, coming up, we do have our wrap up for the year, so you'll be obviously able to see how the games which are featured in this first season have ranked for ourselves as we unveil our top 6.
At the same time, I mean, the top 6 has to be also the fact that we've had months to think about various games. So how it still ranks and how much we still like it comes into consideration. And that's, that kind of might provide some surprises for how our list is going to look.
Yeah.
So we encourage anybody to, drop by and check that out. With that said, this wraps up this episode of review for Batman Arkham Origins. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe. We'd love to hear your feedback and any recommendations down in the comments. You can head over to our homepage, thatmomentin.com, to read more gaming reviews. And to stay up to date on gaming news and releases every single day, follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook at Game Warp Podcast. To catch our episode on the go, you can find us on SoundCloud, iTunes, and Podomatic. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye!